Jack, you wait all summer for midfielders to sign for West Ham and then two come along at once. What a time to be alive. Soungoutou Magassa has signed from Monaco. What are your thoughts?
Like London buses.
Like London buses.
I'm really excited about this one. Not that I wasn't about Mathiasen. I just think, in some ways, just purely personally and for AU, like it shows that our identification of players process is working really well. Yeah, we had him down. I think did he come eventually? I think Darcy had him down as number one in the ball winners video. On the Patreon extended video, I think he was number two for both of us for midfielders we would sign in this window. So yeah, really excited to get him through the door. Super talented player. Limited minutes, or somewhat limited minutes at Monaco, but that's not surprising given that Lamine Camara and Denis Zakaria are there, and Zakaria's the captain when he plays. So the competition in that midfield department is really fierce. Obviously, they've signed Paul Pogba this window to add him to that group. So it was a good time to go for one of them. I always thought it was a good time to go for one of those players this window. Really glad we have, and really excited about what he's going to be able to bring to West Ham.
Yeah, basically what we're saying is if you want to know other players, we'll get linked to it, patreon.com/Analytics United, link in the description below. Because like you said, we covered him extensively. If at the end of this video you get all the way to the end, there'll be a little thing on screen sending you across to the ball winners video we're talking about. But we spoke about him extensively there, spoke about it extensively on the Patreon, and yeah, it's someone who's come up quite a lot. And I think what's interesting this season, I said this to someone on the Discord the other day, is I have found it interesting this window how we have been linked with more players that we have come up with through the process of transfer factories and whatnot before. Like previous windows, there's been one or you go, oh, there's a guy we've mentioned before, but a lot of times other things. Like this window, Macau is another one who's come up in our videos before, for example. There's been a few people who we have been speaking about. Jerry Cisse, yeah, another one who came up quite a lot in those things. And it's been interesting to me how that's ended up working out, which means that actually when we got linked with Magassa originally, before now we signed him, and everyone's like, I don't know anything about this guy. I'm like, oh, we've spoken about him on videos. I know something. It was just very exciting for me personally. But yeah, talk to me. What does the data say if we're looking at it about Magassa?
Well, before we go into data, just a little bit of background. So, come through the Monaco Academy, very talented, obviously, as a young player, talented enough to play for the French under-20s, under-21s and under-23 teams. Has also got 5 appearances for France already at the Olympic Games. Came into the team over the last 2 seasons at senior level for Monaco under Adi Hutter. Initially, Hutter was playing a 3-4-3. So you can see actually, Fernandes coming in today, also having played in a 3-4-3, played in 3-back systems at both his clubs, Estoril and Southampton. Magassa coming in having played a full season in a 3-4-3 as well under Adi Hutter. In that season, actually, he played as a wide centre-back most often, and then Hutter changed at the back end of that season and then into this season more to a 4-2-3-1. I think in part because of they've got lots of good centre-backs, but the quality they've got at Monaco right now at sort of 10 in the wide positions, they're really high quality there for Liga. So we see them move to that system, and then Magassa comes in really as, I would say, primarily in terms of his utilisation as kind of an enforcer in that midfield department, as someone who brings really a really high level of defensive ability in the midfield. Comes in when Zakaria or Camara aren't available, or when they prefer to have someone who has more Magassa's qualities, a sort of a high impact defensive player in the team. Sort of brief summary of the data. When he played initially as a wide centre back, it was kind of obvious what sort of player he could be or would be, because he was right up there for tackles per 90 from centre back at 3.74 tackles per 90, which was the highest in Ligue 1, full stop. But actually, that's among centre backs, but actually the second highest in the league across all positions, which is for a centre back playing at Monaco, a team that usually is pretty successful in Ligue 1. It's kind of indicative of the qualities that he wants to bring. How happy he is to go into duels. He was only beaten that season in Ligue 1 by Manuel Ugarte for his overall number of tackles, is in the top 2% for passes blocked as well among centre backs with over one pass blocked per 90 there. Progressively as well at centre back, really obviously he's a player that's come through with youth experience as a midfielder. I think he's played it as a youngster even further forward, not as a 6 or a centre back, but actually as an advanced day or even a number 10. And we see that in his progressive activity, where he had over 6 progressive passes per 90, 6.15 exactly. You look at players that have signed for the Premier League or for 4 Premier League clubs since then from that season in centre-back positions. You've got Bafode Diakite at Bournemouth now, that season at 5.05, so over 1 pass less, around 1 pass less than Magassa. You've got Lemi Yoro, went to Manchester United, that season recorded 2.29, so way less. And then, of course, our very own Jean-Claire Todibo, who was brought in really primarily because he was seen as one of the most progressively talented centre-backs in Europe. He recorded 5.9 progressive passes that season. That's still less than what Soungoutou Magassa recorded as a wide centre-back for Monaco in that first season under Adi Hütter. Moving into midfield, we just see the most outrageous defensive data kind of across Europe. There are a few players who are quite so unbelievably active defensively. He's just a ginormous outlier. 7.89 ball recoveries per 90 is genuinely insane. We saw Ryan Christie this season used at Bournemouth as a disruptor amongst disruptors. And Andoni Iraola, famed really for being a manager that likes to generate second ball situations with how they play with the ball. So happy to go direct to the front line and then happy to compete for the second ball with high energy in their midfield department. Happy to press really high up the pitch, really aggressively using, again, the legs that they have in midfield. Christie coming in off the wing to play in central areas under Iraola, recording 7.74 recoveries per 90, which was in itself kind of bonkers, and topped the Premier League last season. But yeah, Magassa ahead of that in Ligue 1 last season at 7.89, way ahead of our squad leader for last season, which was Lucas Paquetá at 5.64. So you can see immediately the gulf between him and really our entire squad for his ability to cover ground, mop things up in the midfield. Add to that 5.97 combined tackles and interceptions per 90. That was top amongst all midfielders in France last season. 1.84 interceptions per 90, which was third amongst midfielders in France. 1.4 blocks, 1.67 clearances. Those, of course, per 90. Those also ranked in the top quartile, top 25%, actually top 26% of midfielders in France. So just kind of across the board, overall defensive activity is blown out beyond belief, really. And there are a few players across Europe who can really contest with the insane amount of defensive activity that Magassa has been doing. And when you place him along his age mates in the under 23 category, it's wild. There's just a massive difference between him and the majority of players. There are a few other players that are big outliers as well, and a couple of those we talked about in our videos on ball carriers. I think Valentin Atangana Edoa, who's moved to Strasbourg, was another player that popped up quite highly for overall defensive activity. I think it's important to express, though, that moving forward into midfield, we haven't seen a drop off in Magassa's ability with the ball at all, really. It might have been that playing at centre back with the game ahead of him, he would be able to be really progressive, and then when moving forward into midfield, we'd see that drop off a bit for a young player. But actually, at 239.8 yards progressed per 90 last season, that was in the top 19% of Ligue 1 midfielders. And again, for comparison, I think the comparisons here are really what makes these numbers make sense. The players around him for that overall level of progression in Ligue 1 last season were Andre Gomes. We kind of already have an understanding of what sort of player Andre Gomes is from his time at Barcelona and then at Everton in the Premier League. Then Corentin Tolisso, we kind of have an understanding of his role and what sort of player he is from when he's played as a French international, but then also at Bayern in the Champions League. And then Brazilian international, just called up to the Brazil squad by Carlo Ancelotti. Andre Santos, another player that we've been extensively linked to this window, that I thought was always going to be very difficult to sign, because I think for me, one of, if not, probably the best midfielder in France last season outside of the elite Champions League clubs. Did very well at Strasbourg, and I think will play a bigger role at Chelsea this season. Obviously, we haven't seen too much from him in the Premier League because he didn't play for Chelsea beforehand, went on loan to Nottingham Forest, didn't really feature there, but really came out of his shell with Strasbourg last season. So if those are the players that are around him progressively, I think we can immediately see that actually he's ranking alongside players that are quite heavily involved going further forward. You know, Andre Santos scored quite a lot of goals last season for Strasbourg. Tolisso has been someone that's played more as like an advanced 8, can get forward. Andre Gomes, we know, gets forward, and sometimes with Everton played wider. So obviously really progressively skilled to be alongside those players, and those players aren't really anywhere near Magassa when it comes to the defensive side of the game. So for the combination of the two, it's really him and Santos that are able to do those two things in that age category in Liga last season. We tried, I think, for Santos, and I think it was clear the price was going to be a little bit too much. So it makes complete sense that Magassa is the next player that you go to. And I suppose the last key point that I'd want to make is what he does at the base of a midfield in terms of his composure with receiving the ball back to goal and being pressed. I think he's a really exceptionally talented player there. Young, lot of work to do. I think, it's not the finished article at all, but some of the moments that you see from him, there's a moment, I think we highlighted it in one of our videos that we'd already done. I wish we could put the video together for people, but I think it's against PSG. He receives the ball back to goal. There's a player pressing him. I can't remember exactly who it is. And he leans his body weight to his right and encourages the player that's pressing him to come in on that right side to make a tackle. And then he just leans the other way at the point that the pressers move to the wrong side, and he, to have the understanding as well to do that, it's all happening behind him. He can't see what's happening behind him, but he has a feel for what's happening behind him, and this is not, I'm not comparing him to this player, but not at all, and I don't want people to get sort of misquote me on this, but Sergio Busquets was known for that ability to kind of understand what was happening all around him, and he could just move his body very easily, not really over exaggerate the movement of his body, but could move his body to just draw players in the wrong direction and then find extra space to make the next pass. And Magassa is not at all of the same level as Sergio Busquets, but I think that ability is something that we haven't often seen at West Ham, right? Someone that can receive back to goal and just move their body very slightly and open space very easily. And you see that in this example where he's playing against PSG, where he just, little body feint, drives out the wrong way, takes the entire pressing unit out of the game with just a quick body feint, receiving back to goal, and then he tries a really a really risky but high value pass and flicks it in behind. I think it's for Akliouche on that occasion, who goes running behind, trying to go 1v1 with the keeper. We can kind of capture that in the data where he has a 65.2% take on completion percentage. So when he is pressed and someone does come and try and make a tackle, he generally is successful at being able to beat that player. But yeah, I think that's a really, really important quality for our midfield. The ability to receive pressure comfortably. We know that over recent seasons, when West Ham have tried to play a little bit more with the ball, it sometimes has been a little bit too easy for teams that press intensely to push high up the pitch, force us to go back to the keeper, and the keeper gets forced long, and then we don't possess the ball for extended periods of time. So to bring in someone who is comfortable receiving that pressure and is able not just to receive pressure and then play back, but also receive pressure and roll out and find a way to go forward is a really, really important thing for our midfield, and he is someone that is totally capable of doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me, I've seen some concern around the idea of people looking at sort of like when we've been linked to him and looking up sort of what he does and who he is, seeing Monaco fans not being so fussed about losing him. And I would say, if you just look at the amount of midfielders they have, I mean, they have something, like you say, Pogba, who's just joined. They have Zakaria, who obviously we were linked with previously. He's their captain. They have Lamine Kamara, who we were talking about 6 months ago as someone who, if we don't move in 6 months, then we've got no chance of signing him. And now he is like the bee's knees. Like, he's incredibly good, and everyone recognizes that. So this is a guy who was going to get limited game time anyway, and I think it's the right type of time to take a punt on that kind of guy. You look at him, you go, well, his data is outstanding. I mean, so again, some of those numbers from wide centre back previously, then continuing in midfield. We spoke in the video about Fernandes, or I spoke about in the video about Fernandes, about sometimes when you have a youth player coming through, they play like a couple of different positions and then you see where they settle. He was doing these sort of things at wide centre back. He then gets moved into midfield and continues to do that, plus even more. Like, he's young. He makes all the sense in the world for what we need. He can sit at Monaco and play games here and there. Might come in for some important games because of the quality he has, but he's not going to play every single game. Or we can go to them and say, actually, you can come here and start a hell of a lot of games at a very high level, and we trust you to do that. That's the right thing we should be doing. And I'm incredibly excited that we've done that, because it's not something that we tend to do. We've gone and we've got the premium option with Fernandes. Fernandes was one of the better players we could get in that role for that kind of thing we needed from him. He was one of the best options we could have had for his age group, like an outstanding player. Here we've gone and gone, right, let's go and get someone who we can really, who's got the goods now, and when hopefully he develops, it's just going to be absolutely outstanding. And that's really, really exciting to me. And so I guess when we move on to sort of where's he going to fit into the system, this is the joy of it, is we know it sort of makes perfect sense. He is exactly kind of what we've been missing in that sort of deeper role.
For sure. He fits, again, primary system looks like it's going to be that 3 diamond 3 5-3-2 3-5-2. Doesn't matter again how you describe it. The most important thing is that there's one midfielder that's deeper, 2 midfielders that have more license to go forward, one that sometimes of those 2 is tasked by with dropping to help the deepest midfielder, and one of the forwards drops in, one of them goes beyond. Those are the key roles. I think when you think about those roles, he makes complete sense for the deepest in midfield. His ability to mop things up, his ability to make tackles, his ability to make interceptions, his ability receiving pressure back to goal, make him a really good fit for that position. We know he's played at wide centre back as well. We know that we have issues in defence so far this season, so to have someone who probably doesn't come in as the number one option for those positions, but can play there if necessary, is a nice thing to have. And then I think also when you think about that 8 role on the right-hand side, where that player drops in to help the 6 at times and to contribute progressively, but also needs to be able to cover lots of ground, also needs to be able to make lots of tackles. And then when the left-sided 8 jumps forward to join the front 3 in the pressing system, so it moves from a 5-3-2 to a 5-2-3, the right-sided one needs to come in and play like an extra midfielder alongside the 6 and have the same abilities as the 6. So his ability to play there, I think, for me, is quite clear as well. And frankly, at 21, I think we see, but he is sometimes he's too risky a passer, right? Like, you see that reflected in his pass completion. That's probably one of his weaker elements in the data. What I like to take out of that is he's a player that, as he develops, as he gets older, there could be so much more going forward that hasn't yet been extracted from him, because he's been playing for a top club that has really just this incredible range of attacking options, of attacking players. And he has defensive ability and he has ground coverage. And when that's the case, I think it's very likely that it's sort of like, when we have those options ahead, he's only ever going to be able to play behind those players. Whereas coming into a different sort of environment, where there might be more opportunity in moments for him to develop and show what he can do going forward, I think there could be quite a lot there that has been missed out just because, he's tall, he can run around a lot, so therefore he plays as a defensive midfielder or a centre back. So yeah, I actually think that his ability to start, I think, initially as the deepest of the 3, but potentially develop and go forward and show more and more and more as not just a progressive passer, but actually as a line breaker, as a creative passer, as a player that creates chances, could end up leading him to being someone that could make a really good impact in a more advanced position as well. So that flexibility, when you think centre back, number 6, number 8, and maybe in a future that it's possible for him to play even in advance of that. Yeah, really really nice thing to get. And another thing that you just don't get when someone's sort of like more the finished article at 28, 29, 30 or whatever, like they're more set in their position, whereas here, and I felt this as well with Ngalayo Macau, who we were linked to, there's a sense that because they're young players and because they have a range of different abilities, like Mathiasen as well, there is a level at which you can mould those players into exactly what it is that you require. And again, like we said with Fernandes, because of this, because of his age and flexibility, if you do end up changing managers, these players can be moulded in different ways for different coaches to do different roles and aren't therefore useless or not helpful to a squad down the line if things change. And that's a really nice thing to see in this bit of recruitment where you've got decent fees, potentially high fees being paid for younger players, is that we're not doing that in a narrow way based on, this is what we do and we need someone who's a specialist in this way, and therefore that's the kind of player that we're going to sign. We are simultaneously getting specialists for what we want to do right now, but also players that actually I think help protect the club going forward regardless of what happens, and that is a really really big positive to see. So very very excited about us signing a player like Soungoutou Magassa.
Yeah, protects us and gives us that little bit of flexibility. Similar thing I said in the Fernandes video, where we don't just have to be wedded to singular things, because we do have players who are capable of doing several different things. And that's the most exciting thing about it for me, is when we are struggling, when we do need to change something up because plan A isn't working, or we just have a different plan A for a different team because it's a different side we're facing who are playing completely different football. We can do those little minor tactical tweaks. Now we can do those little changes, move people around, make them do different things, because they have the capability of doing that. And at a young age, that's an incredibly exciting thing to see. I'm really excited about both of these signings. I'm really excited about Magassa. It's fun that it's someone we have mentioned on the channel. Again, if you wait just a minute, there will be a thing on the screen if you want to hear more about him, see some of the stuff that Jack has been talking about. That'll be on the screen. And of course, patreon.com/Analytics United. You can go and listen to the full Transfer Factory Extended, where there is a more deeper discussion about Magassa specifically in that ball winning video. It's just an exciting signing, and it's an exciting day. 2 signings. What a time to be alive. Who knew it was possible? Not me. And yet we're here. That's something other clubs do. And so it's us now. I get to now text all my friends who have been like, "You all right, mate? It looks like you're probably... looks like it's going quite badly at West Ham now." And I go, "We signed some boys." And they'll be like, "I don't know who they are." And then I get to send them our link and then we get more views, Jack. That's how that works. But any final thoughts before we end this?
I suppose on the basis of what you just said, let's wait and see how they do. And also I'd say, I think with 2 such young players coming in a critical area of the pitch where we are struggling at the moment, I think it's really important that it's, be excited, right, about what they can do and how they can grow as players and how they can impact at West Ham. But also I think when you do sign young players to make big impact for you, and you need them to make a big impact sooner, there is a degree of patience that is required. That they are players. I think they're players that are going to make mistakes. They're players that are going to get things wrong at times, and we have to be willing to tolerate that to grow with them. And this is it, right? Ultimately, if you do your job well from a recruitment point of view, which happens, I think, when you have a through line and you stick consistently to a plan. I think the difficult thing at West Ham is we've changed a lot over the last few years, and different people have been involved and different people have signed different players for different reasons, and that has landed us in a situation where we haven't necessarily been developing players that are coming into the 23 to 26 age bracket now, in some of the areas of our team. You end up in a position where you have to go and recruit younger players and put a lot of faith in them, perhaps a little sooner than you would like. You would like them to, maybe have a year of developing alongside someone else. coming off the bench before you throw them in and have them as like the guy that has to be on it and 7 or an 8 out of 10 every week for you to get you where you need to be. So that's where we found ourselves. We've landed there, and we're going to have to tolerate some growing pains, I think, as these young players come in and develop and improve over this season, over next season, at West Ham. And then hopefully going forward, we can start to think about things in a more positive way, in terms of always having a plan for the kind of turnover of the squad that you need to have on some level, to be able to continue to compete, because that's it, right? If you go and have a really top season and you go and finish high up the table, you always need to be thinking about, okay, well, where does this lead to in 3-4 years time, and how are we thinking about that, and how are we protecting ourselves for that, and how are we making sure that we're building a competitive team for then, not just for now. And I like, really, really hopeful that we can see that going forward at West Ham, and I think these players help us start down that path. But I anticipate, despite all of their talent, that there will be moments where it's like, oh God, we've got children in the midfield. And I'm fine with that, and I'm anticipating that. And in many ways, I'm looking forward to that, because I'm looking forward to seeing players growing with us over this season.
That's my thing. It's just being able to know that like, it's the growing, it's the progression. That's almost the more exciting part. Because you look back at like Declan Rice. Declan Rice made some mistakes early in his West Ham career that would be like, oh my God, Jesus
do you remember
Christ.
When that ball came into the box? I can't remember. Was it a cross, second phase corner or something like that? And he ducked at the back post.
Yeah, I think it was Newcastle. I want to say it was Newcastle. I might be wrong, but I think it was Newcastle. And it's those type of things where you're just like, oh my God. And now you're looking at Declan Rice, and we saw his progression and his growth happen. And that's all. I mean, with the Academy of Football, right? We love to see players grow and progress. It's kind of one of the more exciting things about it. And when you sign a player who's as young as Magassa and as Fernandez, watching them grow is part of the joy.
Especially as well, I think, when you think about the other players that we've got come through our academy in those positions to develop with them, Freddie Potts, Lewis Orford, George Earthy, even Preston Fearon coming through as well. I think we've got some really, really exciting young players in there, and really hoping that all of them get opportunities to play, all of them get opportunities to impress over this year, and we see all of them grow and develop and improve, and actually think we've got some excellent players in that age bracket, which makes me feel quite excited about what that department could look like in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time. Which is not saying that I'm not excited about it right now. I just think, wow, it's good now. We're putting it in a position where it can be good now. Think of how good it could be in years to come.
Just like we have some excellent videos over at patreon.com/analytics united. You can 100% check out the first 7 days of 3 if you want to see the things that we've been discussing in this, alongside
just a quote, free, not 3.
Yes, sorry, free. I'm struggling, people. I'm struggling. It's about. You should have heard me before we started trying to pronounce our new signing's first name. I'm not going to go back to it because that would be bad. But
no, Charlie's just foreshadowing the third signing that we're going to make today, and we're going to do a video.
Yeah. Who knows who it could be? Subscribe to find out. Like the video, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Cheers, everyone. Bye.